Ain't there no
What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball and New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow little brother, Garrick Raphael Rattler. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Everything's all good on this end. Getting some rest and relaxation. It's been a crazy couple of days. As far as like being in the city and working, the weather machine is on shuffle again. Some days it's 100 degrees, some days it's not. Some days it's storming. Apparently, a hurricane is hitting Florida, but it's not hitting New Orleans. But it's storming in New Orleans, and energy is turning all off the lights on everybody's lights. And so is Cox. So, it's pretty much, a typical day in New Orleans, right? But nah, man, everything's all good. Been waking up early to catch these FIBA games. I kind of like the like 3:00 games. I'm a weirdo. I'm a psycho. Yeah, I'm a psycho, man. I like getting up early and hey, like there's basketball on. Like get my day started early before I start getting ready for work. And start getting myself together. Catch a couple of games, and Francis they out of it. They get an automatic bid because they hosting the tournament, which is wild because I feel like if you get outed out of the group play, that should like void that. Like that should void that completely. Rondé Hollis Jefferson is turning into Kobe Bryant on the court reincarnated.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And it's a lot of fun seeing all of these different players from all these different countries, and it's crazy what happens when you take a player and you take that team, that NBA team off the front of their jersey and put that country on. They turn into whole different people. So it's been a really exciting, really exciting time to kind of see these guys shine and to see all these different players that you kind of recognize, but they aren't that good, or maybe they were in the NBA a couple of years ago, and now here they are putting up 30 points, 40 points, and hitting game-winning, games-tying three-pointers to go into overtime. So it's been a wild ride, and I'm enjoying every second of it, man. So how's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed. You're right. Like for all the people who are like, man, I could score 10 points in the NBA. I could do. No, you could not. But like these people who've been out the league can go overseas and do what they doing. That shows you the difference of the talent level in the NBA. Speaking of the NBA, man, the WNBA is starting to heat up, man. Like the Aces.
Yeah.
Was that 3 out of 4 to the Liberty? Like,
yeah. So yeah, man, it is. I mean, the Liberty have looked like this entire season, the Aces have kind of been the team that everybody is trying to catch, and they've been blowing people out. Right, but the Liberty, I mean, they just were like, I mean, they've been on par with them like throughout the year, but the Aces have the shine, and they've been a little better than the Liberty. But recently, man, I mean, Sabrina and Courtney Vandersloot and Brianna Stewart are like, and John Quayle Jones as well. I don't give a damn about Vegas Aces, Candace Parker, Asia Wilson. Shout out to Asia. I love Asia. That's my heart. She scored a game tying 53 points. WNBA record, 53 points this past week. But it could have been 54, but she missed a free throw. She missed some free throws. So we gotta make it free throws. But yeah, it is definitely heating up, man.
Yeah. So again, you speak of heating up. You got football this weekend. College football is back last weekend. Now you got the full slate this weekend. You got the Saints roster cuts this weekend. Shout out Jimmy Graham dunking on
yes, sir.
On goalposts again. Like we are here. The fall is here. Right. So before we get too far into the show, we talk about some of those things that encapsulates. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at PelsPod. Follow us on IG, on TikTok. At NO Basketball, there's no E. Follow us on anywhere that you get your contact. Like the episode below, and most importantly, make sure you subscribe to New Orleans Basketball. You will not want to miss it this fall. So before we talk Pelicans stuff, I guess this is a little Pelicans related. Giannis said that he is not going to sign the extension, which again, I don't think anybody planned him to, but it was like what he did afterwards where he's like, they got to show me that they're committed to winning. Basically, he's taking the LeBron playbook and saying run it back with Milwaukee, which, you know, for a player like that, that's probably what he should do to always keep them on their toes. Milwaukee just spent a bunch of money on Brook Lopez to bring him back, Drew Middleton. Like, all these people have money, so they're probably like, what do you want us to do, Giannis? But like, here's where, like, I know everyone's talking about the picks and, you know, let's go trade them all to go get Dame or something like that, things like that. But, like, what do you – like, if Giannis leaves the Bucks and the Pelicans just walk into one of those Bucks draft picks that they haven't started to materialize yet, like that's an elite situation to be in. And so, like, from your perspective, you're David Griffin, you're Trajan Langdon. Do you watch this things play out before you even think about moving any of those Bucks picks? Because those could be pure gold.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the gold standard of draft picks as an organization to have is to have the draft future of a small market, right? Those are the draft picks you want, right? The places where you can't lure, you know, superstar after superstar after superstar. And I mean, to Giannis's, you know, to go to Giannis, he was never gonna sign this extension. Right. It just didn't make sense for him to do it. He could always hold out and get a brand new contract with brand new money, and things like that. But for him to explicitly say, you know, hey, I don't want to be committed to a team that, you know, isn't committed to winning, right? And isn't, that is where the eyebrows get raised. And if I'm, like you said, if I'm David Griffin and Trajan Langdon, these are the, you know, you hate to prey on, you know, people's downfalls, especially small markets, you know, because at any possibility at any second, it could be your market, right? If you aren't right, if you aren't LA, if you aren't New York, at any point in time, it could be you. But at the same time, like you said, this is what you want. You want the draft future of a small market with an uncertain future. And this is what's at the doorstep of the Bucks. So, you know, this is it's a crossroads for the Bucks, right? They, like you said, they just signed all their guys back, brought their guys back, and they were ready to go, you know, blazing for a championship. And Giannis is like, listen, like, I'm not gonna do it if you don't. And their team, right? Even if with those guys there, like, they're getting older, and they're much older than Giannis is. When you talk about Drew and Chris and Brook Lopez, and so, like, it's gonna be very difficult for them to refresh that roster, especially knowing that they used their one shot, right? Really, their one shot to go get that perfect co-star in Drew Holiday, and that's what got Giannis to re-sign there the first time. Well, you don't have that option right now, and you have what you have on the roster, and unless you can flip Brook Lopez or Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday or some sort of package in between them, like, this is your team. And so if I'm David Griffin and Trajan Langdon, I'm definitely watching this with binocular glasses, because, in a magnifying glass, because if Giannis decides Milwaukee isn't his place to be, I don't know how long Milwaukee, how far back that sets Milwaukee, which helps the Pelicans in their draft pick moving forward.
Right. So let's talk about the Pelicans. So more changes happened this week. And before we talk about what happened this week, let's just look at the offseason in totality and recap all of the changes. So in terms of the coaching changes, obviously, you know, the Pelicans part ways with longtime assistant Teresa Witherspoon. They bring in James Borrego to help with the office, bring in Aaron Miles, who worked with Willie Green in Golden State. So the coaching staff changes, right? Like, get Willie Green more people that he's comfortable with and that he wants to build his team out. And then you look at the personnel changes, where you look at it on the surface and you're like, well, they didn't do a whole lot of changes per se, but, like, it's twice as many as last season. Like, literally last season, they just walked into the season and was like, oh, Zion's back from injury. Oh, Dyson Daniels we just drafted with the number 8 pick. That's it. Everybody else is the same. At least this offseason, you decline Billy Hernangomez. He leaves to go play for Barcelona. You don't offer Jackson Hayes. He's playing for the purple and gold in the Lakers. You decline Garrett Temple. He's playing for Toronto. You don't offer Josh Richardson. He's going to Miami. Then you draft the best shooter in the draft in Jordan Hawkins. You sign Cody Zeller from Miami, coming off a finals run. You sign EJ Liddell to a 3-year deal, and you extend Herb Jones a 3-year deal. That's not a whole lot of like changes per se, but it's a lot more than last year, right? Like you're basically getting a new player in EJ Liddell because he didn't play at all last season. And obviously you don't know what you have with Jordan Hawkins yet. So there's some changes there, and there's still an open roster spot left either for trade or left to be open, to be converted for one of these two ways, whether it's Darion Sebron, Liam Robbins, Landers Nolly, stuff like that. But here's like the section that is going under talked about, I think so. The organizational changes. So the medical staff, Aaron Nelson, who's been with the team since David Griffin got there, he's out, right? They're redoing that. Analytics department, they've already brought over new flavor and new talent from the analytics department. That's changing. The whole mentality of the team seems to be changing for some degree. Like, it seems like most of the roster has been in New Orleans, like including Zion. Brandon Ingram obviously been playing with FIBA, but almost every other player on the Pelicans roster has been working out in New Orleans, training, getting better as a team. Most people go their separate ways in the offseason, train, and come back around training camp. They've been here, right? Like Jose declined FIBA so that he could work out and get himself ready, right? Then you got the new statement jerseys, which feel how you feel about that. Then you got the new Crescent City jersey. And this week they announced that there's a new court coming to, like, obviously, if you've been going to Pelicans game for a number of times, you've seen the same exact court since they rebranded from the Hornets, and you've been calling for give the team some flavor of the city of New Orleans. And so they said, oh, yeah, here's New Jersey, here's a new court, be happy. So with all of that said, with all of the changes from that perspective, David Griffin said to end the season last year, they just weren't good enough in many areas. Do you think that based off the changes that you see, how do you grade the organization's effort to at least change the mentality of what this team is, what they stand for moving forward?
Well, that's a great breakdown of the offseason. And if I had to grade the effort, right, the effort that they put into it, I'd give them a B. I'd give them a B. And the B is because, I think that there are obviously changes that needed to be made. There were things that needed to be done. And I think some of the things that they did were very difficult changes for them to make, right? Teresa Weatherspoon being out, the Pelicans from the top down, David Griffin called Billy Hernangomez untradeable at a point. They loved him, right? They loved him, and they loved what he brought. Yeah, well, that technically he's right. Technically, he didn't go back on his word. But like they made some tough choices, right? They made some things and made some face-to-face decisions, everyday decisions that's going to affect every day in the Pelicans. You heard Brandon Ingram talk about Billy Hernangomez and the leadership that Garrett Temple brought. Obviously, they were running jokes about Garrett Temple, but his leadership was something that you couldn't say that it wasn't there. Like people talked to him, and his leadership was there. And so there are changes, right? You talk about the Crescent City jerseys, the new court. As a small market team that has never been into the tax, that really hasn't had anything on court to kind of like jump from and say, okay, this is what we're vaulting ourselves into a new era of whatever because we had this or we're doing this on the court. I think it's about as good as you can do right now. Obviously, there are things that need to be addressed. Talked about the rim protection, obviously, for starters, and in the open roster spot with that still not being available, still being available and not addressed yet. There's still things that need to be changed. But I think one of the biggest changes that you said and that was made, and it kind of shows the direction of how the Pelicans view their situation, as well as like Zion and Brandon Ingram and those guys, is the Aaron Nelson move, right? Aaron Nelson, when he was brought on, when David Griffin first came, he was considered a huge get for the Pelicans, right? This is a guy who had Shaq mention him by name. Grant Hill, Steve Nash, some of the guys who have been in his system in Phoenix, and those players credited him to extending some of their careers and keeping them on the floor a lot longer than they probably should have. And for him to come to New Orleans, it was a huge get. Well, when you turn around and as that same franchise, that same small franchise, like turn your nose up at Aaron Nelson's, leadership in his decision making, right? When you take him and strip him away from that title, that's a huge, huge step. And it shows you that there were some things going on between Zion and Brandon Ingram and that training staff is led by Aaron Nelson that may or may not have caused them to miss some games that they may or may not have been able to play in. And so that is an admission to that. Like, is you can hide it, you can do that, but there was a reason you took this guy's decision making away from him. And so that's a huge, huge step. I think we'll see what it bears going forward. But I think having to make those uncomfortable steps with Aaron Nelson and Teresa Witherspoon and Billy and Garrett Temple, not so much Jackson. Obviously, Jackson had his tips with the organization, and the organization extended as many olive branches as they could to him for him to get ready to get on the floor, and just couldn't get right. But I think making those uncomfortable changes is something that was very much needed. I think going in the status quo into the season with the same coaching staff and the same names and not having James Borrego there and just having the same people do the same thing could get a bit stale for both the organization and the fans. So I think this just trying to breathe a new life into the organization and having Jose as the poster child for getting everybody excited about those jerseys. I think that was a good move, but it's still to be had about this rim protection situation, unless Liam Robbins is who they think is the guy. To get that addressed, I think that is one of the huge places where the Pelicans need to at least acknowledge that there's something that's not there, or to do something about it. But outside of that, I'd give him a solid B.
Well, JaVale McGee got released today by the Mavs, so
he did.
He's available, things like that.
He did.
The way I look at it is, I want to give them an A for their effort. Not necessarily from the roster perspective, but from exactly what we talked about. Like, they're rebranding. Like, this is a new team. We're starting a new era. To your point, ain't a whole lot of rafters in the building already. How do we step out of who the Pelicans were and walk into who the Pelicans have become? And the reason why I say it's an A is because the mentality shift in their stars. We talk about the evolution of Zion and how he's treated this offseason different. But you're also seeing that from Brandon Ingram as well. Like, this is a quiet guy by all accounts. Anyone who talks to BI says that BI is quiet. Like, he doesn't say a whole lot of words. Well, now he's coming out. He looks noticeably bigger. He's signing with Jordan Brand, which you can't run from the spotlight when you're a Jordan athlete. He's playing in FIBA, which I want to talk about for a second. He's struggling to really find his way. You talked about it last week. He's not used to playing without the ball. But to be honest, like, anytime Brandon Ingram has missed time during his playing time with the Pelicans and then had to come back and adjust to Zion, it's taken him some time to figure it out. And then when Zion walks away, you've seen the best version of Brandon Ingram. Well, the best version of the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram is option number 2. And the way that you get the most out of Brandon Ingram has to be with him doing more off-ball things, him doing things to impact the game in a different way other than just pass me the ball and ISO, right? And so, I think that this FIBA experience for him is a good one, regardless of the stats, regardless of any of those things, because this is something that he has to grow in. He has to learn how to be an all-around player. Like, he has so many talents. Like, people say he's not super explosive and things like that, but his length and athleticism makes up for the fact that, like, he's not jumping off a trampoline like Ant Edwards and things like that. So the ability to rebound, like, he's 6'10" and his arms are like 7 foot tall. You don't have to have an 80-inch vertical to be able to have effort, and like Josh Hart says, just go get the damn ball off the rim when you're that tall and your wingspan is that long. To go play defense on every night in possession type effort and my mentality. It doesn't take a super athlete to do those type of things. It takes the want to, right? And so if the ball's not coming to you every possession or the play is not being run through you, how are you impacting the game? Like some of the things I'm noticing from the FIBA, again, the scoring hasn't been there. Even to some degree, the last game, like the scorer wasn't there. And like you've seen from Brandon Ingram in the past, you start to see a lapse in the defense. You start to see a lapse in the rebounding because he was visibly frustrated. Well, you can't do that when you're the star of the team or one of the stars of the team. You've got to find a way to put your impact on the game. And so, he's entering a different stage of life. And like he's 26 years old. Again, who I was at 21 is much different than who I was at 26. And so he's walking to this game like, how can I be better? And from the get-go, you've seen him put an emphasis in the small things. And so from this experience and from what you've seen from Brandon Ingram so far this offseason, again, we talk about the growth in Zion, but do you see the maturity level growing in Brandon Ingram as well?
Yeah, I do. And, again, this is part of, we talk about these basketball players, part of human being growing up, being frustrated in a new role and things. And I think Brandon Ingram has a magnifying glass on him the way that like other people take, for instance, Austin Reeves, right? Austin Reeves had nothing to lose in this FIBA tournament, right? He came in as kind of like the fun, happy kid that showed up in some things for the Lakers. And when he got to this FIBA champion of this FIBA team, if he didn't play well, right? If he was having these games like Brandon Ingram was having, it would be like, oh, this is a young guy just learning, first experience in international, learning the game and learning to be, amongst all of these superstars. His eyes are big and things like that. Whereas when he plays well, like he is now all of a sudden he may be the next heir to Larry Bird. And so like he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Whereas Brandon Ingram is different, right? If Brandon Ingram comes in and he has these games like he's having, it's like, well, what's going on with Brandon Ingram? Is he garbage? Is he trash? Is he now not good anymore? But if he played well, it's kind of like, oh, well, that's Brandon Ingram. He's supposed to play well. That's what he does. And so it was a no-win situation for Brandon Ingram. Now, he has struggled, and that is true. And I think part of it is like we talk about his roles. It's one thing to play off the ball as the second option. It's another thing to play off the ball as the fourth, fifth option on this team, right? We talk about Jalen Brunson and Anthony Edwards, and really when Jaren Jackson gets the ball, it's going up. And then you bring in Austin Reeves, and you bring in Tyrese Halliburton. Yeah, there's so many people who got it going, and they aren't looking to cater to Brandon Ingram. They are not. The way that, like, even if Brandon Ingram was playing off the ball to Zion, like, you're still second in command. Like, if Zion is passing the ball, he's probably looking for you or Trey on the
Zion is also an extremely selfless player. I don't know if I can say that about everybody on this FIBA team.
Right. That's a good point as well. And so I think that it's very different. He's not playing off the ball right now. He's being a spot up shooter. That is not playing off the ball. That there are guys who play off the ball, and then there are spot up shooters, and that's what they're asking Brandon Ingram to do. So I do see a maturity. I do see him getting bigger, getting more mature, growing into his body and things like that. What I need him to take from this particular FIBA experience is to know these frustrations, understand these frustrations, and understand that, like, there like you said, there are other things to do in a basketball game other than catch the ball and call an ISO. And so if I had somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who tweeted it to me, said that he looks way more engaged on the defensive end than the offensive end at times. And that's a good thing because, again, nobody on the planet Earth is like Brandon Ingram can't score. If you're saying that, you're lying. You're a bold-faced liar. So he's going to be able to score at a clip that we're used to him scoring. But can you get excited about defense? Can you get excited about rebounding? Can you get excited about giving effort? And I think that if he continues to get that opportunity, his game is going to come. It's going to happen. But also, and the last thing I'm gonna say is that, these players, all of them have said it, and you can go listen to some of the podcasts, listen to people who are over there, and they'll talk about it. Paolo Banchero has said that the ball is just way different. He had to take the trip from Las Vegas to Manila because the ball, and he has to hold the ball with him because he said it's different. It's a lot smoother, it's a lot bouncier, and things like that. And so I do think for a guy who is as meticulous as Brandon Ingram is, I do think that is something to do with it as well with his shooting. But he's just a guy who you have to give him the ball and let him go. And right now, that is not his role, and it will not be for FIBA. So do not look for his scoring. I don't think you'll see a 25, 30-point game from Brandon Ingram at all this entire tournament. But what I do think you'll see, look for the rebound and look for the defense, look for the effort, look for the other things that he is doing, and kind of grade him and critique him on that, because it is very obvious that the offense is not catered towards Brandon Ingram. And when the offense is not catered toward Brandon Ingram, you're not going to get those 30-point outings. And that's why you don't see him very often with Zion next to him. You get those 20, 22, 24 games, but we haven't seen that 40-40 LeBron Kyrie game, or that, 30-30, 35-30 Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown game, because the offense is catered to those guys. It's not going to happen in FIBA, and I don't think you should hold him accountable for that. And I think once he gets back into the Pelicans offense, we'll see that Brandon Ingram offensively, but we need to see some of those things that he's learning on the other side of the ball, bring that back to the Pelicans.
Right. I do like that, how he changed his mentality that last game, though. Like, he realized that if he doesn't get the ball, it's not coming back to him. So what he did in the last game, anytime he got the ball, he shot the ball. And I think some of that needs to be taken, because, again, the best versions of Zion and the best version of Brandon Ingram have not coexisted yet. They have to find a way to get the best version of each other while they're both on the court, because that's the only way the Pelicans get to where they want to go. So we talk about Brandon Ingram and FIBA, the Pelicans being 3-0. The Australians are 2-1.
Team USA
being 3-0. The Australians are 2-1. Dyson Davis has played like a couple seconds of FIBA. They lost to Germany. I think he could have had an instant impact in that game, because Dennis Schroeder was pick and rolling them to death, and they had no one who could stop him. I feel like Dyson could have maybe had some impact there. But what are you looking for from him, from Jonas Valanciunas, who's got Lithuania off to a 3-0 start, who they're going to play the U.S. this weekend? What are you looking for from those two players, and what they can take back with them to ultimately be positive or add additional impact to the Pelicans next season?
Well, at least Dyson has some experience about sitting on the bench and people playing in front of him. They probably shouldn't be playing in front of him. Shout out to Devontae Graham. But I at least he has some experience to that. And again, for a guy like Dyson who isn't getting minutes, which is very wild to me, especially on a team that is lacking, perimeter defenders, and is getting killed from the perimeter. For him, just continue to work on your game, be around the guys who you feel comfortable being around, your countrymen. Hopefully he gets an opportunity at some point to play some minutes. But I'm not sure what Dyson can get without being on the floor. And I don't understand why he's not on the floor, right? I was talking to one of our the Pelicans Australian fans, Lyle, and he was telling me, he follows all of the Pelicans. All of the Pelicans information. And then when he's in Australia, obviously he's following all the Australian things. So him following Dyson kind of lines up. And he was saying that Dyson was brought in to be a third guard behind Dante Exum and some of those other, and Patty Mills and those guys. So hopefully he's keeping his head together. I know he wants to play out there, but hopefully he's learning some things from those veterans like Joe Ingles and Patty Mills, and then obviously learning some of the tricks of the trade from Dyson is more athletic than Josh Giddey, but Josh Giddey has some of the savviness to his game, and maybe Dyson can pick some of that up. For JV, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm hoping that David Griffin and Willie Green are watching JV as opposed to anything that JV can bring back, because JV is showing, hey, if I'm a focal point for any point in time, right? I can get you buckets. I can get you a double-double. He's a basketball legend in Lithuania. He's literally like a hero. Like he's a hero in Lithuania. And it's a guy who's prideful, right? And he shows that he can still deliver at times. So, if they can, if JV can come back with film to show David Griffin and Willie Green, that's kind of what I want him to go. Like, hey, look what happens when you give me the ball. Good things happen. And I think that JV can be used in that way, early and often. Obviously, Zion, Brandon Ingram, Trey, CJ, all of those guys can get points at whenever time. But get JV involved because he seems like he's more engaged with this Lithuania team more than he is with the Pelicans, right? And that's defensively, that's everything. And I think it's because, and obviously he's not going to be the number one option, but you can throw the man a bone or two and let him work out and prove that, he's up there with some of the offensive threats as far as scoring wise go and as far as rebounding wise go. So for Dyson, like I said, just keep your head together, learn some of those things from those vets. And for JV, bring home the tape and put it on 4K for Willie Green to let him say, hey, give me the ball at some time.
I mean, for Dyson, just being around vets, like Patty Mills been in the league for forever, and Joe Ingles looked like he's been on this planet for forever. So, like, there's so much knowledge and experience that can be shared from that. I'm hoping he just gets that aggression streak, right? Like, hey, man, I just practiced and worked out with them all summer long. I didn't play very much. Whenever I get back to my team, I'm just showing what I got. Right, because I'm picking up, like, he's not stopping basketball. Like, the season ended, he started practicing, and he's going right back into training camp. So he should have a leg up on some of the competition. You're absolutely right. Like, Willie Green and David Griffin are there at the FIBA tournament, watching BI, watching JV. Like, there is a role for JV if you use him correctly. Like, you talk about the Kevin Love role for Miami last year. There are times where, regardless if everyone's healthy or not, there is your backup center, whoever he is, cannot guard Jonas Valanciunas. And so if you're starting the second quarter or whatever, feed him and make them make an adjustment. And again, you've got all these guys that can get their own in different ways. You just got to find a way to get the most out of it. So to wrap this up, I want to do a quick segment, a true or false segment, but except you have to say why. I'm going to throw 3 statements out there. You tell me true or false, and you say why. And I feel like this one might be interesting. So first one, Trey Murphy becomes the 9th player in NBA history to finish 50, 40, 90. And this sounds crazy because Trey's probably going to start the year on the bench, but he did it at Virginia, and last year he went 48, 41, and 91. So he wasn't that far off. True or false?
I think it's true. I think he does it this year. I think he gets the opportunities. And I think that, with his ability to score from everywhere, the walking conundrum that he is, I think he gets it this year. I think he becomes the 9th player this season to do it. Now, it won't be on like averaging 30. No. He won't be averaging 30 points a game doing it. But in his role, like you said, he was knocking on the door of this season. And I think that he's going to get his opportunities, whether it be because he's just on the floor now or because, like the Pelicans do, people get injured. And he's going to have to step in and take more of an offensive role. I think he gets it this
the
season.
Strength that he put onto his body and the fact that he's adding to his dribble should help with that 48%. Some of those layups, those crazy wild layups, should be dunks or to be free throws. Number 2, the Pelicans will have 3 players that average 20 points next season. Now, remember, you already have 3 on the roster that average 20 points for a career. Last year, the only team that did it was the Warriors, and Clay's the only one that played 65 games. So, true or false?
I think that the Pelicans have 2, and then they have 2 players that average like 18, and then another one that averaged like 16 to 17. I think CJ takes a step back offensively. Trey Murphy takes a step back, takes a step forward offensively. They kind of like even each other out a little bit. Yeah, and I think that's where it goes because I think Trey is ready to, step into a bigger role offensively. And you're not taking shots away from Zion, and you're not taking shots away from Brandon Ingram. So I think the person that you take the shots from is CJ. And I think that they tend to balance each other out. So I don't think they get 3 that average 20, but I think they get 2 that average over 20, and then 2 that's like right there at 17, 18 points a game. Maybe a little less than that, but I don't know if they get all 3 for 20.
I think that's a false statement as well. That's hard to do. There's like one team that does it every year. And so that leads us into our last question. The Pelicans will have a top 5 defense and will have a top 5 offense. Last year they finished 6th in defense and a whole lot toward the bottom in offense because of no Zion Williamson. One team has done this each of the past 5 years: the Celtics, the Suns, the Bucks, the Jazz. That's pretty incredible company to be with. What are your thoughts? True or false?
I don't know if they'll finish there. I don't know if they'll finish there only because, I'm factoring, people missing time and, what you see some of these guys, some of the teams that you mentioned outside of the outlier of the Jazz, like all of these guys, all of those teams, their main player played like majority of the season, right? We talk about Giannis and Giannis and Jokic and those people and teams like that. So I don't think they'll finish top 5 in each. I think they'll probably finish higher than they did, obviously, if Zion plays more games offensively. I think the defense remains, but I don't know if they finish in the top 5. So I'm going to go false on that one.
I'm going to go true. I think they do it. While Zion was playing at the beginning of last season, they were top 5 in both. So, and that was before Zion. That was right when Zion was starting to get his knack defensively and starting to pick up his legs that way. And I just think, again, the Pelicans are going to run teams out the gym when they're healthy, and that leads to really good stats. So I don't know. We'll see there. That's it for this show. We got another one coming for you later, but what you got left for the people?
As always, you never know what people are going through, so give somebody a smile today. Quick shout out, happy birthday, Miss Leisha. I know you out there with your baby boy. Shout out to you, happy birthday to you. Yeah, man, we're in the last leg until training camp starts, and things will be coming at you with questions and answers about training camp and covering those as they come, as the guys get back into from their respective countries and teams and all of that. And get back into the city and get after it, right? We're ready for a season. The Pelicans are bringing these new jerseys and these new courts. So let's shake off that injury bug. Let's give a big middle finger to the injury gods, and let's just go get it. So as always, follow me at Garrick_Rattler on Twitter. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO Basketball, no E, on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find us. Most importantly, subscribe to the channel below. We'll see you guys next time.